Listen closely. We are currently living through the single greatest, most violent technological upheaval in human history. We are witnessing the systematic automation of human utility, while the 95% spend their lives in a state of chronic panic, frantically refreshing their feeds for the next software breakthrough, sweating over updates, and weeping as their professions are compressed into lines of automated code. We are going to do something entirely different. We are going to look backward to move forward. The world is paralyzed because it has made a fatal philosophical error. Humanity has confused utility with identity. You have been conditioned by a broken system to believe your value is tied to your production, what you can write, code, analyze, or organize. Now, a collection of algorithms can replicate your entire career in 3 seconds. Modern economics calls this job displacement. Ancient Stoicism calls it a collapse of self-mastery. But on this channel, we call it an eviction from a false prison. If an algorithm can automate your daily routine, it hasn't stolen your life. It has merely exposed the fact that you were living mechanically. It has stripped away the illusion of your external occupation to force your awareness into your internal territory. Let us remove the guilt and look at the ledger of your life honestly. Your mind is a sophisticated piece of prehistoric threat detection software, evolved over 300,000 years to scan for anomalies. 10,000 years ago, an unknown shift on the horizon meant a predator was hunting you. Today, an unknown shift in the technology landscape triggers that exact same biochemical panic. You sit alone in your room, reading headlines on a screen, your chest tightening, your breath turning shallow, feeling existentially hunted by artificial intelligence. But history has seen this play before. The printing press destroyed the monopolistic utility of the scribe. The industrial loom automated the raw labor of the weaver. The assembly line altered the purpose of the master craftsman. Yet, the core human condition remained entirely untouched. The 95% live and die as prisoners to the current moment. They suffer in advance of catastrophes that haven't occurred, letting external variables dictate their internal peace. They do not realize that technology is not a monster. It is an indifferent force. It is as neutral as the tide, as unconcerned as the winter storm, as detached as solid stone. You cannot fight the wind. You can only build a soul that does not bend. Most of the people who clicked on this have already swiped away. Their dopamine receptors are too degraded by the very machines we are analyzing. They require a fast cut, a bright screen, a cheap piece of digital distraction to escape the emptiness inside their own heads. They are the permanent captives of the system. But if you are still here, if you can feel the quiet, freezing weight of this truth settling into your core, then your exile from the crowd begins today. Subscribe to the 95 Perspective now. Do not do it for our metrics. We do not seek validation from numbers. Do it because your current way of processing reality is a life sentence of anxiety, and this script is the blueprint for your internal citadel. Unclench your jaw, drop your shoulders, open your hands. Let the world panic outside. We are going to build the immovable soul within. Let us travel back into the stone corridors of Rome in the 1st century AD. The Roman Empire is experiencing an unprecedented crisis of scale. Wealth is flooding into the capital. Automated slave labor has handled the agricultural foundations and the old agrarian way of life, where a man found his meaning in the soil, the sweat of his brow, and the immediate preservation of his household, has been violently dismantled by an empire of hyper-efficiency. The citizens of Rome are suddenly liberated from the struggle of basic survival, yet they are completely miserable. The streets are packed with elites suffering from deep existential boredom, status anxiety, and chronic restlessness. They spend their days chasing cheap spectacles at the Colosseum, gossiping in the public baths, and panicking over the shifting political alliances of the emperor. In the midst of this societal rot stands Lucius Annaeus Seneca. He looks at the frantic, high-powered men of Rome, men who own entire landscapes but cannot sit alone in a quiet room for 10 minutes without losing their minds. And he writes a warning that could be pulled directly from today's digital landscape. Seneca stated, "We are mad, not only individually, but nationally. We check slaughter and isolated murders. But what of war and the much-vaunted crime of slaughtering whole peoples?" Seneca understood a fundamental law of human nature. When you change a man's external environment without changing his internal architecture, you do not liberate him. You merely give his demons a larger playground. The Romans automated their labor with human currency. Today, we automate it with server space. The anxiety is identical. The fear of becoming irrelevant to the tribe is identical. To survive the techno-collapse, you must master the core Stoic concept of adiaphora, the doctrine of indifference. Stoicism teaches that everything in existence can be divided into two categories: moral virtue, your choices, your intentions, your character, and external indifference, wealth, health, status, and technology. Artificial intelligence, automation, and the shifting economic currents are not moral evils. They have no character. They are completely indifferent forces. They are the tide. Imagine an ancient mariner standing on the deck of a wooden ship during a Category 5 hurricane. If that mariner screams at the ocean, curses the waves, and demands that the storm stop moving, we call him a madman. Why? Because the ocean cannot hear him. The ocean does not care about his plans, his family, or his ship. The ocean is simply being the ocean. The 95% spend their entire emotional lives screaming at the digital ocean. They treat technological progress as a personal insult, an enemy to be bargained with or defeated. The 5% look at the storm, realize they have zero jurisdiction over the movement of the waves, and turn their absolute focus to the one thing they do control, the handling of the rudder. Technology is an indifferent terrain. If it expands, it expands. If it automates, it automates. Your duty is not to stop the tide. Your duty is to ensure your soul is built out of granite, so that when the water rises, you do not dissolve like salt. Let us leave the stones of Rome and enter the clinical lexicon of Carl Jung. Jung spent his life analyzing why modern humans, despite all their scientific advancements, medical miracles, and engineering feats, were deeply fragmented and spiritually hollow. Jung realized that the more orderly, automated, and scientific our external world becomes, the more violent and chaotic our internal world becomes. When we automate our survival, we do not eliminate our primal energies. We merely force them underground into the abyss of the unconscious mind. He left us with a severe psychological truth. The world hangs on a thin thread, and that thread is the psyche of man. Look at what happens to your mind when you spend 6 hours consuming automated content, interacting with digital systems, and living in an insulated environment of technological comfort. You are not at peace. Your chest feels tight, your attention span is fractured into milliseconds, and you feel a deep, unnamed sense of dread. This is the revenge of the unconscious. You are trying to live as a purely logical, digital unit, but your biology is still ancient. Your soul demands depth, friction, struggle, and real presence. When you replace real human meaning with automated optimization, you create a massive, toxic psychological shadow. The panic over AI is not a panic about job displacement. It is a primal panic that we are building a world that has no room left for the human soul. To survive the digital shadow, we must examine an ancient parable pulled from Zen and depth psychology, The archer's paradox. Imagine an elite archer standing before a target. The archer who belongs to the 95% looks only at the bullseye. He obsesses over the target. He thinks about the gold medal, the praise of the crowd, the fear of missing, and the variables of the wind. His mind is entirely projected outward onto the outcome. When he releases the string, his hand shakes, and his arrow flies wide into the dirt. The master archer looks only inward. He knows that the target is an external indifferent. He cannot control the target. He cannot control the wind after the release. Therefore, he turns his entire awareness to his stance, his breathing, the alignment of his shoulders, and the stillness of his focus. To the master, the release of the arrow is not an attempt to hit something outside. It is the natural consequence of perfect alignment within. The modern techno-panic is an obsession with the target. You are staring at the shifting economic charts, the AI developments, the external marketplace, and you are trembling. You have forgotten your own form. If your internal environment is clear, if your self-mastery is uncompromised, it does not matter what target the world places in front of you. You will draw the bow with absolute calm, knowing that your value is contained in the drawing of the string, not the scoring of the point. Let us travel to the coldest frontier of the ancient world, the Danube River in the year 174 AD. Marcus Aurelius, the absolute master of the Roman world, sits in his military tent. Outside, a devastating plague is tearing through his ranks. His borders are being overrun by Germanic tribes, and his currency is collapsing. He is surrounded by complete systemic chaos. He has every logical right to panic, to run 1,000 worst-case scenarios through his intellect, to stay awake until his eyes bleed. Yet, he picks up his stylus, opens his private journal, and writes a command to his own soul. The mind is that which is self-turned and self-determined. It makes itself what it chooses to be. Marcus Aurelius did not seek to fix the Roman Empire before he fixed the imperial intellect. He built what philosophy calls the Internal Citadel, a fortress of the mind that no external variable, no plague, no war, and no technological shift can breach. When you feel overwhelmed by the speed of the modern world, you must clinically ask yourself the ultimate boundary question. Where does my jurisdiction end, and where does the world begin? The algorithm, the economy, the political cycle, these exist outside your walls. They belong to the circle of chaos. You have zero authority there. The moment you cross that boundary to try and manage those external forces, you become an emotional refugee, begging a cold world for a security it cannot provide. Let us implement a direct clinical protocol to isolate your mind from the digital noise right now, the filter of immovability. Every notification, every news headline, every alarmist prediction about the future is an energetic parasite. It enters your consciousness, demanding your emotional currency. It wants your fear, your attention, your frantic clicking to keep its systems alive. From this moment forward, when a piece of techno-panic enters your awareness, apply the Stoic Razor. Can I take a direct, constructive physical action in the next 5 minutes regarding this information? If the answer is yes, you stop thinking and you execute. If the answer is no, if it is an abstract prediction about what will happen to your industry in 5 years, or a headline meant to induce panic, then it is not data. It is noise. It is an illusion designed to deplete your sovereign energy. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Wipe out the impression. Say to yourself, it lies in my own power to ensure that no disturbance finds a home in this soul." You must treat your mind like an elite, heavily guarded sovereign border. If a piece of information cannot show a visa of immediate actionability, you do not argue with it. You lock the gates of the citadel and let it starve to death outside your walls. To find the final anchor for the soul, We must move from the palaces of Rome to the absolute darkest landscape of human history, the Auschwitz concentration camp in 1944. Inside this monument to total human degradation walks Viktor Frankl. He is a psychiatrist. Everything has been systematically automated to strip him of his humanity. His family has been murdered, his life's work destroyed, his identity replaced by a number tattooed into his flesh. Frankl was surrounded by an environment of complete, automated destruction. Yet, as he watched men surrender to despair and lay down in the mud to die, he discovered a psychological law that no machine, no system, and no tyrant can ever automate. He wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way." The modern world wants you to believe that you are completely helpless against the current technological shift. They want you to believe that if your utility is automated, your meaning is erased. They are selling you a lie to keep you compliant, distracted, and consumer-dependent. Consider the final, unalterable law of your liberation, the law of the sky. Your mind is currently operating like a chaotic weather system. One day there is the clear light of focus. The next day, a violent hurricane of digital anxiety, information overload, and existential panic sweeps through your synapses. The 95% look at the hurricane of progress and believe their world is ending. They try to fight the rain. They exhaust themselves trying to push the clouds away with their bare hands. They run around in the storm, weeping over the loss of their old horizons. But the sovereign intellect steps back into the observing self and remembers, no matter how violent the hurricane is, no matter how dark the storm clouds become, the sky itself does not change. The sky is never damaged by its own weather. A cloud cannot scratch the sky. A storm cannot burn the sky. The sky simply provides the vast, infinite, silent space for the weather to exist, knowing with absolute certainty that the weather is temporary, but the sky is eternal. You are the sky. The technological upheaval, the AI explosion, the economic displacement, these are just clouds. Let them rain. Let them thunder. Let them pass. The sky remains blue long after the digital storm vanishes into the past. The screen is about to return to total blackness. The algorithm, the very machine we have spent this session deconstructing, is waiting to claw you back into its loop. The moment you leave this video, it will try to feed you another alarmist headline, bait you with another synthetic hit of dopamine, and reduce your awareness back into the frantic, panicked ranks of the 95%. The choice belongs exclusively to you. You can go straight back to the chase. You can re-enter the digital cage and spend the rest of your life white-knuckling your existence, bleeding out over an automated future you cannot alter. Or you can take your hands completely off the external controls. You can step directly into your internal sovereignty. Unclench your jaw, drop your shoulders, open your palms, let go of the wheel. If this manifesto helped you find even a single fracture of unautomated stillness in a chaotic world, write the word immovable in the comments below. Let that word stand as a cold, clinical marker of your permanent departure from the crowd. Join the empire of the quiet minds. Reclaim your stillness. Rebuild your citadel. This is the 95 perspective. The chase is officially over. Your true reign begins now.